But the main question is also why, or is there a need that we actually introduce the digital euro? Because we do have digital payments already.
Yes.
There's a lot of options where you can pay digital. You can pay by card, you can use PayPal, you can use Visa, credit cards, whatever. You can pay with cryptocurrencies. It's all there. So the question is there really a need for a new digital means of payment to be introduced? And my opinion is that this need is not really clear. It's not really clear what the added value of this very project actually is. What's your take on that?
Well, I think people are really confused about this because the European Central Bank claims it will be as good as cash, and it obviously isn't, because the basic token of cash is that it's anonymous and it's liquid freedom for us, because it's non-traceable, and it really belongs to some of the constitutions of the European countries. But the right to cash, which right now is not directly, at least on paper, endangered, but then we can see all these developments happening at the same time. All the signs on different shops here, including in Brussels, where they don't take cash anymore, where people are being pushed to use digital payments. And then in the end of the day, they say, well, this is the consumer behavior. Nobody wants to use cash. But back to the question, I do not believe it's as good as cash, because it does not provide the anonymity. And this is actually even in the official documents and the papers that the European Central Bank and the European Union, different institutions provided. So I could quote some very interesting findings that prove that it does not equal cash, and especially in terms of privacy and anonymity. And this is something that a lot of organizations and consumer protection organizations have been concerned with, because this will dramatically change the whole financial system and the whole landscape.
Yeah, these are two different issues. Of course, we have the question of whether there's cash or not. Cash is, if you want perfect privacy for your payments, then cash is really the only option. Every other form of payment is traceable and can be tracked down really for long times. So if you want privacy, you have cash. Cash is the option. Now, the central bank claims that digital euro will not replace cash. You can still use cash, as you're free to use cash whenever you want. And it's true that as long as we do have the cash option, then all things that we are discussing are not as acute as we may think. However, we also note that cash is on the retreat or has been on the retreat for years now, and cash has been used less and less and less. And there is also actions by the EU Commission and by other governments to push back on cash. They don't want cash so much. Also, the banks, the private banks don't want cash so much because it's expensive for them to handle it. And so introducing the digital euro adds to this pressure that's been exercised on cash, and we should be concerned whether cash will be still available in, let's say, 10 or 20 years. And that's then when things get tricky. I mean, at the moment, you could say the digital euro is just an additional means of payment. What you want is still cash available. But it adds an alternative to cash, and it will exercise more pressure on cash, and at one time cash may be gone, and then the problem starts.
Yes, especially when we see sentences like this. I might quote something for you just to refer to real European documents, which is the experimentation scope and key learnings from digital euro. This is a document from the European Central Bank, and it links the digital euro to the digital identity. So I will quote that and ask you to put it into place for us. But then also, I'm thinking, even if all this technology is very useful in terms of making our lives easier and more practical, we don't have to queue and everything, is there still the right to have an analog life? Is there still this option? Because when I see in Germany that every citizen is going to have digital ID, and obviously you cannot access institutions where you have to, do certain files, papers, filing some stuff, or just applications. Yes, these things exist, but then, as you said, you have to have the option, because if you cannot have an analog life, then we're changing the whole structure, the whole system that we operate in. And there has been no broad public debate on that, has there been?
Not so far. I mean, definitely not enough debate. I think that the analog life is the real life. Yeah. We should not forget this. This is the real life, and everything that is happening in the digital world is artificial. And people, we can see that in every day. Yeah? People tend to lose their focus because there's so much in the digital world out there. They're using their smartphones all day, and they are getting used. They're being trained. Yeah? To no longer rely on their analogous capabilities and their analogous behaviors. And that's definitely something to be concerned about, in my opinion. Of course, you could say at the moment we still have a right to have an analog life. I mean, at the moment it's still there, but if you consider the habits of the people out there, then we can see that this analog life is less and less used.
Yes, and the system puts incentives to push us into the digital, and really a lot of people, a lot of young people, but not only, have very big issues coping with that, and really, as you said, living only in the digital realm.
I mean, personally, I think that this is a, as you say, they struggle with it, and I think it has a lot of negative impacts on human society as whole, also on our cognitive abilities and all that, or ways to communicate and to interact as human beings. All of that depends crucially on personal interaction. And we are being, so to say, untrained. We're losing these competencies a lot because we're so much in the digital world out there. So that's certainly a side aspect of the entire story, and something to be concerned about. But it's not directly connected to digital euro, because this process is underway independent of whether we have a digital euro or not.
Yes.
This is something that people do or do not, and we see that they increasingly do.
Yes, I completely agree with you. This could be a topic for another discussion, because I also think it's very important societal point, and also reflected in politics, because these developments are linked in any case. And what I wanted to read out is something from the workflow solutions, from the development here of the experimentation scope on the digital euro. And it says that this working stream is exploring the possibility, and this is a document that I can quote to you and give out for reference, of combining the blockchain solution for the digital euro with an existing digital identity or digital ID and digital signature component. So we already see this in experimentation mode, how the digital euro is combined with the digital ID. So furthermore, it has looked into how, different degrees of privacy, not privacy, but then different degrees of privacy, because we can then break it down to a little bit of privacy, almost no privacy at all, could be afforded to different parties. And there are different models how you could do that, and implications for compliance with existing regulations in the European Union, like the anti-money laundering or combat of financial terrorism. But as a member of the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, I can tell you that there is a lot of scope for interpretation on what is money laundering and what is financing of terrorism, because the European Union actually puts countries, third countries, non-parties of the European Union, on a list which they assume that they might be related to financing terrorism or money laundering. And the last country that they were looking into and really considering and putting on that list on money laundering is the Russian Federation. So obviously this is a very political motive here. So we can see how a political motive is shaping the way that we use the regulations on money laundering, and this is the regulation that allows privacy to be bended and looked into different degrees, which means digital identity, digital euro. Where is the privacy question mark?
Yeah, I mean, this, when you say that privacy can be shaped and decided upon, then this actually is the blueprint for a social credit system, in my opinion. And of course, the combat against money laundering or any form of crime is always the pretense of such action. Now, they will always say, well, we're not imposing a social credit system, we're just fighting the criminals. That's what they're going to say. And of course, this will always be the first instance or the first way in which such things are introduced. But as I said, we should be very suspicious about it, and we should insist on our liberties to not use that system. I mean, if they introduce it, that's okay. I mean, we cannot stop it. We may be not able to stop it, but we should insist on our right to be part of that system or not. Yeah, and that's exactly. That's what you say is the right to have an analog life. Yeah.
Yes, and that system, when we look into it, it starts to give me the chills, because there is two things I want to ask you about, because I know you developed them in some of your academic works, regarding the features of central bank digital currencies and digital euros. So one of them is the conditional payments, or the so-called smart contracts in the digital world. So what does that mean? And the second thing that I'm also going to have one quote on is the programmability of money.
Well, that's a broad topic. We can say that as our world becomes more and more digital, and we have more and more artificial intelligence in place, we have more and more automatic interaction also between machines and everything. We have blockchain infrastructure for maybe asset management and all that. Then there's also room for automatic digital payment solutions, which may be called smart contracts or not.
But what is that? What does it mean?
A smart contract is, for example, is a contract that automatically launches certain actions or payments if certain conditions are met. You could say that you're buying some piece of real estate, and then once you do that, all the necessary payments that you have to do to certain institutions will be launched automatically. Yeah? So that's one way of imagining how.
So I don't have to go to pay my electricity bill every month. It will be subtracted from my digital wallet.
Yes.
What if I don't have, or if I plan to use my funds or something else, or if I don't have enough money and I don't want to pay my bill this month, and the digital contract just follows through?
Yeah, well, then you have to there's probably always ways of stopping such contracts from actually executing payments.
But if they're there,
but yes, of course, then this is extra.
Then I have to think about it.
Of course, yes.
And I have to try to implement it. And as we know, sometimes technology is not really working. So this is a big thing.
Of course, it makes people will increasingly rely on such automatic contracts or payments, and if you lose your control over these,
this is a little bit like the automatic subscription of some online services.
Exactly.
If I don't want to, or if I don't have the money, what happens? It just keeps paying.
No, I don't think so. That would be nice, right? But no, I don't think so. In that case, you're probably broke. The digital euro does have, or it will have, the ability to be programmed in such a way that certain payments can be launched and activated automatically. And so you don't have to do much, because things will run around you.
This really sounds very convenient and like a dream.
It could be convenient in a certain way.
But then we know that even when you pay by card, you're not that much aware of how much you spend. So especially for people who don't have so much funds and they have to look at exactly how do I spend my salary this month, it really sounds like a dystopia to me.
There's always positive and negative aspects about such things. I mean, there is it is convenient on the one hand, but if you lose control over all these activities, then it's also kind of dangerous. And that's always the same thing.